Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for April the 4th in the year of our Lord 2025. This is our one of two, and the goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, country, to do so on your radio in the traditions of our founding fathers. Yes, indeed, we use the checks and balances brilliantly put in place in the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. That is our supreme law. We, the people, have a role in that. I know you think you just delegate to your leaders and then you're done. No. The founders said you have a republic if you can keep it, which means we've got to keep our eye on the ball. It is not a spectator sport, ladies and gentlemen. The checks and balances are designed to have you and I weigh in at every level of government. Our representatives in the House represent us. The Senate represents us. The president represents us. The jurisdictional boundaries between the states and the general government, all delegated from us to them as servants. They work for us. There's two contracts, your state constitution and the general constitution. When are we going to insist on obeying them? Welcome to the broadcast. As you know, we reject revolution unless it's a Jesus revolution. Then we're in because we follow the Prince of Peace. It is a freedom-loving, fantastic, faith-filled, we're taking America back, one heart, one mind, one issue at a time Friday. And yesterday we had on Brian Rust, our dear friend in the honest money business. freewatercoinco.com is where you can get a hold of Brian. And we talked about the honest money report. Gold's up, silver's up. It's just crazy. Stock market's down. Federal money may run out by late May, they say. That's a big old battle on the horizon. Is the U.S. headed for a recession? Many say yes. Donald Trump compares it to a sick patient. The patient's so sick. We performed surgery last Wednesday. As he says, we're going to have a new era. It's like Independence Day all over again. Unless he lowers taxes on my family, I don't believe it. That's my opinion. Trump, quote, unleashes Liberation Day. They call it reciprocal tariffs. Donald Trump calls it kind reciprocal tariffs because they're not 100% reciprocal, just 50% at this point. It's our Declaration of Economic Independence, Trump said at the Liberation Day event last Wednesday, 2 days ago. Trump accused other countries of unfair trade practices, saying the country has been looted, pillaged, raped, plundered. In many cases, the friend and foe are basically the same. President Trump declared it a national emergency. And anyway, we then compared that to the Big Mac cost based on the year you were born. Kind of an interesting website. Economists quote famous price index, aptly named the Big Mac Index. You ever heard of that? They're also calling it Burgernomics because it's burgers, right? Burgernomics. Anyway, you can really track that. The latest Big Mac Index, folks, which was reported a year ago, January 2024, a Big Mac was $5.69. It varies by location, but there you have it. Well, when the Big Mac started out, it was 45 cents back in 1968. Anyway, there you have that. We asked, how much does the U.S. government spend? How much has Doge pared back so far? Federal spending, believe it or not, is actually higher this year so far than it was in 2024. That's according to the Hamilton Project. Not that I trust them, but there you have it. Dow plunges following Trump's tariff announcements. Then we discussed 7 takeaways. Just 72 days after taking office, President Donald Trump announced on April the 2nd this huge, sweeping trade policy changes. All countries, at least 10%, and many countries above that. China weighing in at 54% right now. We're kind people, very kind people, he says. Hey, we got to discuss this trade gap when a nation imports more goods and services than it exports. That's called the trade gap. Well, it reached a record $1.2 trillion last year alone. You heard me, $1.2 trillion. Trump is right as rain. This has got to be stopped. How do you do it is the question. Anyway, there you have that. It's just a disgrace. Dr. Scott Bradley's with me to break this down. Welcome to Liberty Roundtable Live, sir.
Sounds like everything's already broke down. But I got to say something, though, up front. I mean, there's just probably 200 subjects you've just brought up that I would love to take an extended period of time
Boil it down to one subject. Tariffs.
Well, okay, whatever. You pick a subject, and I'm going to give you the same answer right now. I am just sick and tired of being sick and tired. You probably heard that statement before. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired with everybody and their dog is all caught up in this, oh, ain't it awful, we're all going to die. And look.
It's not awful, we're not going to die. It's a fantastic start. We just need to get the rest of the things in place.
Well, here's the deal. There are so many naysayers, so many people that are just, I mean, when I was younger, we were going to have a new ice age, and now we're warming. And now they forgot there's global warming because they're mad at Tesla, so they don't want electric cars. I mean, these things come and go with the wind. And
by the way, they always have and they always will, right, Doctor?
Here's the problem, is that we become so fearful, so doubtful, we're not going to survive. I mean, you look how that was on steroids during the COVID con, and everybody curled up in a ball and died. And the fact of the matter is,
I threw down.
Tammy, I mean, I'm just telling you, man. I'm just telling you, man.
It's ubiquitous.
That this is
You're right.
Entire movement. I mean, if Trump does one thing, there's an oh, ain't it awful on the other. If one of them does something, Trump's on the oh, ain't it awful on the other. And I just here's just a little kind of a personal perspective, but when I was young and kind of got messed up a little bit while I was in the service, and the major that was the doctor that was my consultant on the thing, he says, let me tell you something, Bradley. He says, you're going to die. And I said, well, that's the program we're in, isn't it? He said, well, yeah, right. You're right, everybody, but you're going to die within 6 months. And I told him, I says, I want another opinion. Just because some buffoon, and most military majors that are doctors are buffoons, in my opinion.
By the way, just really quick, 60 years later, somewhere thereabouts, 50 years later, I was present when you were told you were going to live. That's all I know.
Yeah, I know. But that's the problem, is that I told him I wanted another opinion. I did not believe his death certificate just yet. And here we are about 55 years later, and I'm still here. But that doesn't mean I'm perfect, and I've got all my maladies. But the fact of the matter is, this nation has survived thus far, and I'm sick and tired of everybody telling me everything is unraveling and we cannot live. Oh, man, Gore, what's his name? Al Gore. Oh, yeah, it's all over by, 26 or 2006 or something. I mean, every single stinking lie we have been told, somehow we've come through. And I am just hopeful over the long run that we have enough people with common sense. I mean, I think there were more diplomats and statesmen back in 1859 than there are now. I mean, I think almost assuredly. But the fact is, because
I'm confident because I can count the statesmen on one hand in America today, pretty much.
Well, I'm not sure I can count them on any fingers. But the fact of the matter is, that is a little bit of a dour statement. But honestly and truthfully, let's just take the tariffs. You wanted to do one thing, tariffs, fine.
Yeah, tariffs, that's right.
But let's just take a view that maybe is a little more hopeful than what everybody's saying. I mean, you say, the Dow is plunging. The Dow has not plunged. It didn't fall off a cliff. It's down a few points.
That's right.
I mean, go back and look at the Dow. And gold is worth exactly what gold was worth 100 years ago.
1,000 years ago.
Because gold is an intrinsic value item, okay? And why gold is going up is because the dollar is going down. But the fact of the matter is people don't put these together. But let's look at tariffs for just a second. I think Trump, honestly, truthfully, in his heart of hearts, believes that he's onto something that's going to help this out. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you how it's going to turn out. I can tell you right now. And I'll tell you why I can, Doctor. I know that when I bring things up, it seems like there's 3,000 issues, and I get that that's the way, hey, our society is these days. I boil it down to redneck, simple, stupid things, okay? And the reason that I do is because then even I can understand it, right? I know when it's complicated, it takes other guys to get it, but I can boil it down to really simple things. Go ahead and skip the break, Jay, please. So I can narrow it down to very simple things, and here's the deal. A tariff is a tax hike. Now, don't misunderstand me. I believe it's a better way to collect taxes than the income tax, than the property tax, than a sales tax, than a excise, any of these other kind of taxes, okay? Because I believe it's a non-direct tax, which is what the Founding Fathers led with. So I believe Donald will do very well putting those tariffs in place. I support them 100%. Where I think Trump goes wrong is if he thinks he can pile that on top of the current abuse taxes we're already paying. Most Americans are already paying at least 50% in taxation. That is more than grievous to be borne. And so, you know what? The success of this thing will be, does he relieve the other side of the equation? If you pop a 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever percent tariff on a country, you're really putting it on the American people on imports. I got to pay for it when I buy a car, for instance. But if you reduce taxes on the other side enough, so if you get rid of general income tax, if you reduce, these other taxes and you reduce government spending, it can and will work. But if you think you can just tamper with one side of the equation and not the other side, you are sadly mistaken. Doctor, is it that simple?
Well, actually, that's more Founding Fathers-ish than you hear on the normal media kind of stuff. It is a pretty complex subject, but in fact, boiling it down and simple and everything else like that, it's got so many elements of truth in that. However, I am here's the deal. We the Founding Fathers wanted to use tariffs to fund the nation. Read the 45th Federalist Paper.
Rightfully so.
That was their program. All these other things, as you so astutely point out, are piled upon piled upon piled. The average American of such an animal exists is paying about half their gross income to some level of taxes. And you say, oh, my income tax is only 20%, whatever it is. You say, no, but what about your property tax, your sales tax, your excise taxes,
your
all
toll
these
roads, it goes on and on and on, right?
So
the extra taxes you pay when you go
right.
out to eat called entertainment taxes. I mean, I could just keep listing them till the cows come home, Doctor.
But the Congress has to respond.
That's right.
Trump is unilaterally acting as though he's a monarch, and he is not.
And he shouldn't, and he's got to stop, and we've got to get Congress to catch up and quit slow walking those efforts. So Congress, there's a headline that says, Congress, quote, no good week. It's written by Christopher Bedford over at The Blaze, and it's a great column. It's almost like if I wrote it. He says this is the high water mark for Republicans. They better get moving. Friday marks the beginning, today marks the beginning of the fourth month since the 119th Congress convened. It's been 92 days now. And for such a quick start, lawmakers don't have much to show for it. Tensions are high in the Capitol. The House of Representatives managed to do a couple of little things. They managed to avert a government shutdown, as if that's a good thing. Pass the National Defense Authorization Act, which I think is a disaster, and pass a bill recouping money from unemployment fraud. I guess that's good. Except for the fact that the government shouldn't be involved in unemployment in the first place, but that's a whole nother topic, right? They also created its own version of the budget. The bottom line is, hey, the budget they just spent into oblivion. They didn't take into account DOGE or any savings at all. They're not cutting spending. And that's my point to Trump. You cannot collect a ton of taxes on one side, or you're just in a tax increase on the American people. Okay? The first 100 days of any administration will be marked by, quote, rapid action. And the Senate's not renowned for its speed. In fairness to the Speaker of the House, they say Mike Johnson's only got a slim majority to work with. After that, he's lost Mike Waltz, he's lost this, he's lost that. And they go on and try to basically, in my opinion, protect Mike Johnson. I don't think Mike Johnson needs to be protected. I think he needs to be removed immediately and impeached. Now there's a big battle between Anna Paulina Luna, yet another Florida Republican, gave Mike Johnson a run for his money, literally shut down Congress over this, quote, remote voting discussion or proxy voting. Now that they've alienated the Freedom Caucus and House leadership in one swing, it's going to get tough. Anyway, the Senate is not much better. They're slow. What exactly is the upper chamber's plan for the budget? Well, they say they're moving ahead, not even really getting any reconciliation going. They're just going to put forth their own plans and see if the House buys off on it. Anyway, they say they can use reconciliation. It's a complicated but useful tool, so they only require 51% or 51 senators, not 60. It's a painful place to be. Finger pointing's everywhere. Now compare that to the Donald Trump administration, who's got a lot done. But, of course, these things take time. The first 100 days will be marked by fast action, and then it's going to start to slow down. We're at the high water mark, folks. The Democrats are going to push harder. The president's momentum is going to slow, and it's going to get rough, and it's going to get rowdy fast. Now, I bring that column up because I think it's true. I think Trump's tried to do a lot of good, and I support the tariffs. But I'm telling you right now, it's a tax hike. A tariff is a tax. Inflation is a tax. We discussed all the different taxes. What about the inflationary tax? The inflationary tax single-handedly used to be $1 silver dollar was an ounce of silver. Now an ounce of silver costs literally $31. Our money has decreased 31 times in value. Our fake fiat currency. That's just that single tax alone. We haven't even begun to talk about income and property and everything else. So it's a disaster. Trump's on the right track to put tariffs in place and to stop these countries from abusing us and fleecing the American people. I get it and agree. But unless you reduce on the other side and you do it fast, it will not go well. The economy cannot take that on top of all the other abuses, Doctor.
I want to ask you a rhetorical question, so don't answer this question. How long did it take us to get into this bucket of crap? It took us so long.
Since 1913, I would say is the start of the real cause of the problems, right?
Well, let's go back to Lincoln. There's a lot of things that can happen.
Sure.
Okay, but it's a long time getting in.
Yeah, that's right.
And we have lost.
And it'll take a while to get out, for sure.
Well, and everybody thinks it's got to be the first 100 days. Okay, I want to see things moving. I want Congress to move. And Trump is being a monarch, and Trump is going to be off on a track, and we'll find everything's undone with the next person that can sign an executive order. But the fact of the matter is, we have got to say, we've got to pick a path, even if it's for the long haul. We've got to be in for the long-range path of it in order to correct this. You cannot correct this in a 30-minute discussion or a 100-day discussion or even an executive office 4 years. I do not believe it can be corrected, but we've got to find a good path and try to follow that path. We have been on the wrong path for so long. It's not in the generation that lives today.
Amen.
As old as I am.
And out of the 100 things that Trump puts forward, I would say 5 of them have merit to focus on.
Well, here's the deal.
I'm serious. I just think most of what he's proposing is an overreach, is a clown show, is a sidestep, okay? And the reason that I say that is because it's not changing anything, okay? There's only a few things that we could change in this first Congress. You've got to think about it, one Congress, 1 2-year stint at a time, because that's all the 435 members have. And so you've got to say, what can we accomplish in 2 years or less? In fact, take out the election cycle. What can we accomplish in 1 year or less? And someone needs to laser-like focus in on what can actually be done in that amount of time. We've got to unwind ourselves, and it will take a long time, as you wisely point out, but you got to start somewhere. So the real question is, where do we start? And it isn't about deciding if Greenland wants to join the United States. That's just not where it's at, Doctor.
And it's not starting more wars with the Houthis. And all of these things are Bravo Sierra that we don't need to be involved in. But taking the long view is what Americans have got to be. And everybody's saying, oh, by golly, the eggs have not come down in price. Okay, how long? We killed off all our chickens, for crying out loud, with a phony baloney bird flu scare that was based on a knee-jerk reaction on fear, doubt, anger, and hopelessness. And you look at, let's just take, first of all, Trump cannot constitutionally fix this. That's the bottom line. And the Congress
because let's be clear so people understand, because he's never been delegated authority to do so.
The Constitution doesn't say this is your job, man.
Right, so he doesn't have authority, right?
And what has happened over the years is the government, the Congress has over the years said, oh, President, you take care of health and human services. Oh, you take care of the economy. Oh, you take care of national labor relations issues. That is not delegated to the President in the Constitution. And so the Congress has been remiss. We have constantly spineless individuals that sit in the office of Congress that we, the people, should be up in arms about, saying, what the heck are you doing? We're paying you $175,000 a year to sit on your butt and bitch. And it's not the way the program should work. Now, let's just take one thing. Okay, Trump overpromised, maybe. I've said this. Trump overpromised a lot of things. But then we got this thing where no tax on tips. It's a very, very simple item. And I don't support it. I'll tell you why in just a moment.
You don't support what now?
No tax on tips.
Right.
And it's not because I'm against everybody, that segment of society getting a tax break. But the problem is it's class warfare in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's pulling the lever in favor of the few at the expense of the many. And that's where socialism and stealing begins, right?
And so but Trump was touting this, and it worked so good for him, they think, in Nevada. I'm not sure that was the full source and reason for his victory in Nevada. But the Kamala Harris crowd says, hey, this sounds good. People like this. Let's do no tax on tips. So now there's people on both sides of the aisle, no tax on tips. But the problem is that we begin basically to pit class against class. Why don't we give everybody a tax relief? If we can say, okay, and there's a lot of complexities. Different states handle taxes differently on tips. Some people, the employer has to make it up. Some people, in some states, you only get half the minimum wage because you're a tipped person. How does that affect Social Security and all this kind of stuff? It's a complex thing. I'm not supporting any of these positions. I'm just saying it becomes so complicated nobody can figure it out. And if everybody wants to be a tipped employee and then nobody gets taxed, okay, maybe we can do that. Everybody gets a tip every weekend or every Friday when their paycheck comes around, and you get tipped. But the fact of the matter is, it's a simple rallying cry that is so flawed. Why don't we cut taxes everywhere? Why don't we start saying this nation? See, most political figures, whether it's a president or a vice president or a Congress, they look at the citizenry of the nation, literally, as a revenue source that's not fully maximized. So how can we get more out of this or that or the other? Oh, yeah, we're going to tax. I got my own community that wants to tax my computer on my desk, because I can use it for business.
Yeah, they want to do it every year, don't they?
Every year. I paid taxes on what I bought this with. I paid tax when I bought it with the sales tax and everything. But I'm a completely untapped. I'm not completely untapped because they're already draining off what they can. But they want to expand their revenue stream, and they're always constantly and forever looking for another revenue stream. What we need to do is recognize government has a limited function, and that power was delegated in writing. They took an oath to do it that way, and we just nobody seems to remember that. And now we want.
We got to insist on it, ladies and gentlemen. We got to insist on it. I agree with Dr. Bradley. On one hand, I don't support the tips tax, sidestep, because all it does is pull the lever in favor of a few at the expense of the rest of us. However, any penny that's in the hands of the American people and not in the hands of government, to some degree, is a good thing. So it's these things are epic discussions, folks. And we really need to return to the simplicity of the Founding Fathers. What is government authorized to do? And then we need to demand they do that and only that. That'd set us off to a good start, wouldn't it? Hang tight, Dr. Scott Bradley with me. freedomsrisingsun.com on your radio.
Pursuing liberty, using the Constitution as our guide. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. The March jobs report has landed. America's employers grew their payrolls by 228,000 jobs last month, more than economists expected. Hiring in healthcare and transportation sectors led the way, the unemployment rate ticking up a notch, 4.2%. If your retirement account is invested in the stock market, you might want to avoid checking the balance, at least for now. On the heels of yesterday's huge losses, looks like we'll be seeing more of the same today. Ahead of the opening bell, Wall Street futures sharply lower. The stock market slump follows President Trump's announcement of tariffs on trading partners. Economist Steve Moore tells the Salem Radio Network it's all about finally getting a fair deal for the U.S.
Well, wait a minute. We're not waging the trade war. Their tariffs are, 2 to 3 to 4 times higher than ours are. So I do believe at the end of the day, Trump is using this kind of weapon of tariffs to get other countries to create a level playing field to treat us fairly.
China says it will slap a 34% tariff on all American imports effective next Thursday. Another Ivy League school may have to tap more of its endowment money as it faces a loss of federal support over campus anti-Israel protests.
The Trump administration plans to halt more than $500 million in contracts and grants awarded to Brown University. Brown stood out for a deal it struck with student activists. In exchange for the students dismantling an encampment, the university committed to having its governing board vote on whether to divest from companies protesters said were facilitating Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories. Brown's board ultimately rejected the divestment proposal. Ben Thomas, Washington.
And watching Wall Street this morning, the Dow futures are down 1,044 points. NASDAQ futures off 488. S&P futures 140 points in the red. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Let's face it, the world is uncertain these days, but there's something reassuring about holding onto what lasts. The 2025 1-ounce gold eagle from the U.S. Mint, a symbol of American strength and an asset that stands the test of time. You can trust gold and you can trust Global Coin. Call 833-SPOT-GOLD to secure this magnificent coin graded in pristine MS-70 condition for the dealer cost of $30.99. Free shipping, no sales tax. This is your chance to own a piece of history while building a foundation of enduring value. It gets even better. Global Coin is giving the first 100 callers a free MS-70 2025 Silver Eagle to complement your 1-ounce gold eagle. 2 iconic coins, a symbol of prosperity and a testament to the enduring value of gold and silver. Global Coin backs every purchase with a 30-day return policy, ensuring your peace of mind. Visit globalcoindeal.com or call 833-SPOT-GOLD. No gimmicks, incredible coins at incredible prices. Again, that's 833-SPOT-GOLD.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement, how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at cspoa.org. That's cspoa.org.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character, where educating both hearts and minds brings about academic excellence. There is a school in American Fork where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. Based on LDS principles and a love of country, now in our 39th year, American Heritage School is accepting fall enrollment for kindergarten through high school. What would you do for your child? Give them an education that will prepare them for life. Located east of the temple in American Fork, American Heritage School is a remarkable and affordable alternative. Visit us, find us online, or in the Yellow Pages. American Heritage School in American Fork.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com, and yours truly discussing the tariffs. Congress, no good week. Go look at the Blaze incredible column highlighting that the Republicans are at their high water mark. They better get moving, folks. And the problem is, a lot of what Trump's doing I don't agree with. A lot of what Trump's doing I do agree with. But I don't agree that it's the right branch. So the concept is right, but the action, the tactics are wrong. You got to get Congress to jump aboard. And I believe Mike Johnson is put there to slow walk and deep state drowned Donald in his proposals. They've been slow walking and not accomplishing anything. But I will say this, and this is the problem. This is why Trump needs to just narrow down on several items that are clear, understandable, constitutional, and move towards them. One of them would be decreasing spending big time. That's all Congress should be focused on, from the president's push to all the American people pushing. You have got to reduce spending. Because at the end of the day, hey, the only way we're going to get this country back on track is if the government has less money, okay? Just think of the mischief they can make with unlimited money. You've seen it already, right? Anyway, but there are issues that I believe we're getting involved in that we shouldn't. For example, everybody believes there's election fraud. At least everybody that I know. There's some kind of fraud that it's a problem, that it needs to be fixed. We all agree we need to go to paper ballots. We all agree we need same-day voting. We all agree we need, okay, I can go on. But I digress from the headline. But the headline says this: state's suit calls Trump's order on elections unconstitutional. The president has no power to do any of this, their filing in court says. I got this over at newser.com. Democratic officials in 19 states filed a lawsuit on Thursday to stop President Trump's attempt to reshape elections across the country, calling it an unconstitutional effort. Okay? It's an invasion of states, they say. Now, they're trying to use that because that's what we use on the border, right? They say it's an invasion of the states because the states should be deciding their own elections. The lawsuit was filed in U.S. District Court in Massachusetts by the Democratic Attorneys General. And there are a bunch of states involved in this: Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Wisconsin. Those are the people that are involved in it right now. I agree with the problems with the election system, and I agree that the fixes are what Donald's talking about. I disagree that the general government, especially the executive, has authority because it goes against the Constitution. I hate to say it, but these Democrats are right on this one, Doctor.
Well, they're right, but for the wrong reasons.
Well, you're correct about that. That's right.
Here's the deal. First of all, the executive has absolutely zero authority in this, and he's trying to fulfill a campaign promise to bring integrity to elections, which I believe any right-thinking person would want to have. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, you want to have integrity in the vote. And Article 1, Section 4 of the United States Constitution is very specific, that the states are going to prescribe how the elections have. And there's a little caveat that they've taken and driven 1,000 miles an hour away from the constitutional original intent with. But basically, the intention was for the states to be in charge of their elections. But let's stop and look at what has happened since the post-Civil War era. Again, we go back to Lincoln and his cronies and what they did to everything, the radical Republicans. But the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, the 17th Amendment, the 19th Amendment, the 24th Amendment, the 26th Amendment, and beginning in 1965, the Voter Acts that have been subsequently amended, every single one of those things seized a greater control of the elections that the states were supposed to run. And so the reason that most of these, I think, and I can't read their minds or the crystal ball or anything like that, I think that, but it's an assumption I'm making, which could be faulty, so I'll do all those caveats. But I think most of those states that filed this lawsuit want a larger general government direction on this. They want the, no paper ballots. They want no voter ID, all these kinds of things. They want these things, which further erodes honorable elections. And so it's interesting to me, the states should be running this thing. Okay, fine. But the fact of the matter is,
constitutionally, that's correct, right?
Right. But the problem that they're doing is that they want the expanded federal control that the voter law of 1965 subsequently amended. They want that to be the gold standard, if you will, and it basically is making every election one that's run by the general government, which takes away from this program of the states having their own destiny in their own hands. And so, we see these things and you say, well, they're right, but they're wrong, or they're wrong, but they're right. It's kind of like the Civil War.
Yeah, you got to just take simple things, though, and you got to not muddy the waters, okay? States are supposed to control elections, right?
They are, according to the original intent of the American Founding Fathers. And there's this little caveat, which I inferred but didn't read.
Yeah.
The Congress may at any time make or alter regulations.
Okay, who may? Not the president, Congress.
Right, exactly. Well, it's in Article 1, which is the congressional job description.
So in every way we look at it, though, hey, I'm not debating the merits of the lawsuit, and I'm not debating what they're pushing towards. All I'm telling you is when they say, hey, it's the states and the president doesn't have the right to dictate this, constitutionally they're right. Now, I don't debate that they're going off onto another tangent, but you got to simplify and break these pieces down so people get it. They're correct on this. Donald's wrong, and they're right.
And if it goes to the Supreme Court and they rule based on a constitution, but they've got all these other amendments that are muddying the water right now.
Well, now that's wrong, and that's where we got to kind of start to take a piece of those and tell you what's wrong and what's right about each piece. The problem is, at the end of the day, if we don't clearly point out what's right and wrong from where, people don't even understand at the end of the day what's going on. They just throw up their hands and walk away and go, man, I'm leaving that political stuff to other people because it's goofy and I can't understand it. Well, it's obvious why. We can't, it's hard to even get clear for people to understand what's right and what's wrong constitutionally or from the Founding Fathers' perspective. And that's why I drive home with these simple snapshots. Because, look, I don't care how complicated the courts get. I don't care what amendments are there. I don't care. Americans need to know states are supposed to be responsible for the elections, not the general government. That fundamental understanding is what Americans need to take away at this point.
Well, and here's another just side tangent. I know that you hate it when I do this, but the fact of the matter is, you look at all of these amendments that have been brought forth, and each one of those
amendments to the Constitution.
I'm talking about these amendments that change the voting stuff. Okay, so there's 6 amendments that changed voting plus the Voter Rights Act stuff. Okay.
But each one of those you say amendments, though, not amendments to the Constitution, right?
Yes, they're amendments to the Constitution.
All right, so constitutional
14,
amendments.
14, 15, 17, 19, 24, 26.
I get it. I want people to understand that. We're talking about not amendments to bills. We're talking about amendments, changes to the Constitution. Whether they've been properly ratified or not is a whole other topic. But these are the ones we're discussing, right?
Okay, but in every instance, these were brought forth by a 2/3 vote by both houses and then ratified, supposedly, by 3/4 of the states. And so these amendment ratifications, literally and truthfully, were wool pulled over the eyes of the American voters in a big way, okay? And again, we'll just tie it back to this effort to rewrite the Constitution. They say, you're never going to get 3/4 of the states to go along with something stupid. Well, let's just point these out. 14, 15, 17, 19, 24, 26. On voting alone, the states gave away their premier position. Okay, little by little, it's not but some of them, for example, the 17th Amendment violates the 5th article. You say, how can an amendment violate an article? Well, it does, because every state, according to Article 5 of the Constitution, has to agree if they're going to give away their equal suffrage in Congress. Well, every state's still got 2 senators, don't they? Well, they do, but they're elected by the people, and there were states that did not agree to that when the 17th Amendment, Utah didn't agree to it. I mean, that's one of the few times Utah's really been right. Rhode Island didn't. Delaware didn't. And then there's Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. All of those ignored that thing, and a bunch of other ones didn't even meet over it. So every state had to say, we're giving up our equal suffrage, because the senators represented the states in the national level.
Yeah, and so they destroyed an incredible check and balance there.
They did.
And the further we get to the Constitution, the harder it is to get back. And that's why I want these snippets of understanding before the American people. I agree with Dr. Bradley. These things are complex, but you've got to take simple items, put them on the kitchen table, and point out clear direction. That's what we hope to do on this broadcast. Hang tight.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Experience the untamed spirit of the American West with Range Magazine. Each issue is a visual journey featuring award-winning photography and compelling stories that capture the heart of ranching and rural life. Stay informed on the challenges and triumphs of those who live and work on the land. Subscribe today and receive quarterly editions delivered to your doorstep, and join a community that cherishes the enduring legacy of the Western frontier. Visit rangemagazine.com to subscribe.
Mr. President,
Senator from Kentucky.
Reserving the right to object. I lived for 4 months in Asheville, worked at the VA hospital, so I have fond feelings for Western North Carolina. But the thing is the reason why we won't do this in a responsible way is because the Senate voted to send all your money to Ukraine. I mean, they voted to send $200 billion to Ukraine. I've been all over the mountains of Appalachia when I ask people, would you rather that your senators take care of you here in Asheville or here in Pikeville, here in Appalachia? Would you rather them send your money to Ukraine? I don't get anybody wanting to send a penny to Ukraine. Look, you can have all kinds of sympathy in the world for Ukraine, hostility towards Russia being the aggressor nation, but we don't have the money. We're $2 trillion in the hole. Interest this year is going to be $1 trillion. And as far as passing this, I'm willing to let it pass today. He's going to object to passing his own bill today simply because it gets paid for. I'm willing to let the bill pass, but take some of the fluff and boondoggle subsidies from the Green New Deal and put it into here. The money's sitting here. We put it into here for disasters. We help Asheville today.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I get that issues are complex. I understand that, and I agree with that. But I also get sometimes for the American people to understand things, we're not educated in the Constitution. We're not educated in the proper role of limited government. We're not educated in Bastier's the law to understand defensive proper role of government versus offensive government's gone out of control. We don't understand the Founding Fathers, the debates, the discussions, the concerns, the sacrifice, all the things that went into that stuff. So what I try to do is I try to break down simple concepts. The big battle right now is, hey, Donald says he can put an executive order out and fix elections. Well, 19 states are saying, no, you can't, it's unconstitutional. Now, it's a complicated issue. I agree that all the amendments have manipulated and slowly but surely given authority and power away and destroyed the checks and balances in America. That's worth pointing out as an issue. We got to divide these issues and help people understand them one at a time. Doesn't mean that we're making everything simple, but it means, hey, once you gain knowledge of these basic pillars, putting them together becomes easier as you gain experience. So these states are right. Trump does not have authority to do that. Congress does. And Congress has limited authority to manipulate with state elections as well, if you read this. Now, are these people doing this for the wrong reason? Yeah, I think they're doing it because they just hate the Donald. If it was their guy trying to do this, they'd be like, oh, man, this is totally fine and good. And then they'd point to the 1960, whatever it is, act that Dr. Bradley's referring to. They'd point to that. He's right as rain. But again, if you're not careful, it gets so complicated, people can't even understand, and they just throw up their hands. I see it everywhere I go, when I speak, when I talk, people are just so confused. So we got to make two issues simple on this topic. One, Trump doesn't have authority. These states are correct. Where the courts will go, we'll find out. Separately, yes, we've whittled away at the Constitution, whittled away at states' rights. Lincoln was one of the chief architects of this, but it's been going on for decades, and that's a whole nother issue, but a valid one to discuss, Doctor.
It certainly is. Let me just broach a good piece of news, and then you can throw it away if you want, or we can talk about it right now, or you can talk about it next hour, or not at all. I don't care. But Anthony Fauci's wife got laid off from the National Institute of Health, and she's
so
out
sad.
looking for a job now. I mean, this is poetic justice, albeit belated and late and way too soft and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you'd heard that or not, but she was over the ethics department at the National Institute of Health, and she was compromised horrifically by her marriage to Anthony Fauci, and the whole COVID con could have been slowed down or even derailed if she had even raised a voice of warning at all. But because of that, and by the way, the Fauci's personal wealth. Now, this is according to a report that came out that I saw, that it went from under $4.5 million. It raised over $7.6 million in the 2 years of 2020, 2021, well, going into 2022. So just a little over 2 years. How in the world, on a bureaucrat's salary, do you have your personal wealth go up over $7.5 million?
Criminal acts in government. Follow the money and we can prove it.
Yeah, but I thought that was a little tidbit of good news. I mean, there's so much ointed offals out there.
So I got a question. Her name is Christine Brady, right?
I think it is Christine. I can't remember her last name.
I think it's Christine Brady. I wouldn't take the Fauci name either if it was me, so I don't blame her for that. Anyway, did she just get reassigned from the NIH to an Indian reservation?
No, it's Grady. Grady. Christine Grady.
Oh, not Brady. Grady. Okay.
Golf, as in the first
Grady.
letter.
All right.
And I don't know. See, here's what the deal is. A lot of these people that got let go were given options to go move to Alaska or to Montana on an Indian reservation or something like that to continue to carry out their responsibility. They were given other options. I don't know if she was in that crowd that got there. I'm suspecting that if it was like, let's do this, guys, and see what happens. They got a pretty...
Yeah, so here's the headline, just so you know. Christine Grady, the wife of Dr. Anthony Fauci, was among several top officials who were notified that they were being reassigned from the National Institutes of Health to the National Indian Health Service. That's according to the Washington Times.
Well, and that may be the case with further information. When I first read the article, there was nothing in the articles. The articles that I came across and looked at recently said, and this could be like something that came out today or something, and I have not been in the news sources today. But it was unknown at that point, and the chances of her accepting an assignment in Montana or Alaska are slim and none. I mean, they got some pretty good digs in the Washington, D.C. area, and Anthony Fauci, was making $500,000 a year, highest paid civil servant in the United States. Servant is kind of a questionable term. But the fact of the matter is they were making pretty good money, and I got a feeling that she's not going to go want to live in some hogan someplace to work with the Navajos or wherever we go, okay? So I think that they would have respectfully declined the opportunity to move to one of these Native American locations where they could have helped with their health care, giving out, vaccines or something. I mean, that would have been a perfect.
Yeah, I sure hate to sick these clowns on the poor Indians, though, for heck's sakes. I mean, that's horrible.
The Native Americans are a poster child for government gone amok. The Native,
Amen.
I mean,
and they've been wrong,
suicide,
for sure.
Every step of the way, suicide rates, drug abuse rates, spouse
But
abuse,
they're continuing to wrong
abuse.
them now, too. I mean, on one hand, they
No
say
question.
they're separate sovereign nations. On the other hand, they're willing to the thumbprint and under the, on the dole for the American taxpayer, too. I mean, it doesn't end. And that's the problem. We've got to unwind this stuff one piece at a time. And it all starts with decreasing spending, in my opinion. It really does. So Fauci's wife, her name is Christine Grady. Sorry, I thought it was Brady, but it's Grady. I guess she's been reassigned. The point of these reassignments, just so people understand, I don't think it's that, at first you're like, why would you reassign them? They're doing that because by law, they probably can't fire them. But if they reassign them to a place they don't want to be, you either got to go to your post or resign, right? And so this is a way to pressure them out is what's really happening, as far as I understand, Doctor.
Yeah, that would be my impression also. But wouldn't it be cool if she got put in some location out in the desert of Arizona to work with the Navajos? I mean, it's not like I'm saying that's a bad place. I mean, I've spent a lot of my life trying to assist and lift and bless the lives of the Native Americans.
It's a suffering place, that's for sure.
The Native American burdens that were inflicted upon them. People need to go back and read the Northwest Ordinance of 1787/89 and read the Founding Fathers' intention for how they were going to deal with the Native peoples. And we abandoned that principle.
It didn't go down at all like they intended, ladies and gentlemen.
As they started dying off, things got worse and worse until, Andy Jackson came along, did some horrific things with the natives, and even the Supreme Court ruled against him. And he, he was a pretty astute fellow in terms of constitutional authority. He talked about, there the Supreme Court has a ruling, but let them enforce it. Supreme Court has no enforcement arm. Zero. None. Nada. They don't have
intentionally people.
Right. They're the weakest branch. The strongest, by the way, is the House of Representatives. That's why they got a 2-year term.
It's supposed to be the strongest. Constitutionally, it's the strongest. Right now, right. I think it's the weakest.
Well, that's the problem. We have abandoned the principles that all of this was founded on. See, that's why, people say, the judges, are in office for life. No, it's for doing good behavior. Go back and read Article 3 and read that again. They're in there for good behavior, which means they can be removed. And by the way, Mike Johnson could shut down these district courts, just decommission them. They're not there anymore. And the circuit courts even could be that way. The only constitutional...
That ought to decrease expenses and create less friction, thinking judges are above the president and above the Congress, right?
Absolutely, but the Supreme Court has a constitutional existence. I mean,
mandate,
you can't get rid of that. But the point of the matter is, and by the way, and I'm all over the place, I know, but I'm throwing things out as they come to my mind, and my mind sometimes moves faster than my mouth, even, if you can believe it.
And I just try to slow it down a little bit because there's a treasure trove of information, and I just want people to get the concepts on the kitchen table. Otherwise, Doctor, you go so fast and furious through so many, hundreds of years of history, and you put it all together to where it's hard to follow if you don't have a background to understand a lot of it. So when I slow you down, don't think for 1 second that I don't like the commentary. It's that I want to make sure people get key components of it. That's all.
Well, I personally believe, and I don't know a lot of the people that might be listening to your program, I think that these people are listening because they're more astute than the average bear, and they're going to follow on track. Let me just say one other little quick thing. There were a couple of special elections in Florida that were won by Republicans to replace the people that Trump took out of the House. So now Mike Johnson has an even bigger majority. So he's increased his comfort level, if you will, if you can find comfort in Republicans being in the House.
It's now up to 4, is that what it is?
It's like, no. I think 220 to 213. I think there's a couple of vacancies that are still out there. But 220 to 213, he's got some wiggle room. And
you got to have 218 at least to be proof. So you've only got 2 above the proof level, though, right?
Correct. But the fact is, it's better than it was, and he ought to feel pretty good. And he ought to take a bold move and start pressing some of this forward.
Amen, without question. And so I'm not necessarily criticizing all that Trump does. I do my best to tell you when he's right and when he's wrong and why, constitutionally and morally. And then I do my best to back the President of the United States. And right now, I think the biggest impediment to Trump and his agenda is Mike Johnson and is the House of Representatives. They're supposed to be the strongest branch of government. Right now, they seem to be the weakest because they're not taking action. They're just getting rich on our dime. We need Doge to find out where the money is. And how do these people just serve office at $175,000 a year but get rich at the end of their stint? How does that happen, huh? Hang tight. Hour 1 of the can, 2 coming up.